Grand Admiral Thrawn, the greatest naval mind in Imperial history, is still active in the galaxy after the Battle of Endor, and evidence from this season of The Mandalorian reveals that he still has at least one key part of the 7th Fleet in his possession. We'll discuss that and more on today's Star Wars lore video. Hey guys, this is EckhartsLadder. Hello and welcome to another Star Wars video. So, this season of The Mandalorian has revealed what many of us expected. Grand Admiral Thrawn is still alive and active in the galaxy, and maybe even more so than I would have guessed in this time period. Who is Grand Admiral Thrawn? Well, I covered all of that in a prior video, but essentially he's a genius strategist and tactician who's loyal to the Empire despite being an alien, a member of the Chiss race. He was one of the most famous Star Wars Legends characters, but has been reintroduced to Star Wars canon, where his fate has been somewhat ambiguous since the end of Rebels, the animated television show. Thrawn disappeared alongside Ezra Bridger, which is most likely why Ahsoka in The Mandalorian and presumably other associated materials has been looking for his whereabouts. So I thought we'd talk about how Thrawn could be a threat from a military standpoint by examining the last fleet that he commanded and looking at whether any of those assets could still be remaining. So, before his disappearance in Star Wars Rebels, Thrawn was commanding the 7th Fleet. The 7th Fleet features prominently in the final 2 seasons of Rebels and is used largely to track down Ezra, Hera, and the rest of Phoenix Cell. By this point, Thrawn has already risen to the rank of Grand Admiral, and we see that 7th Fleet is quite powerful. In the show alone, it's made up of 6 Imperial Star Destroyers and a variety of smaller craft. Now, you might be saying 6 Imperial Star Destroyers, is that really that much? Well, yeah. If you read the associated Thrawn books, many admirals or lesser ranked individuals would be commanding only 1 or 2 ships or a task force centered by maybe a single Star Destroyer, but 6 ISDs at the time was more than enough power to face down literally any foe in the galaxy. Phoenix Group, for example, could not defeat the 7th Fleet in a straight up battle, so this was a lot of power. The flagship of 7th Fleet was the ISD Chimera, which was also the name of Thrawn's flagship in Star Wars Legends. However, in canon, the Chimera is an Imperial 1 class Star Destroyer, which is different. Imperial 1s are less well armed than the ISD-2 and has some minor visual differences, most notably I'd say the array above the superstructure, but the Chimera itself also had a unique paint job, a Chimera on the ventral side of the ship. I'm talking about this specifically because if you see a Star Destroyer that matches this description in The Mandalorian or one of the other associated shows like Ahsoka or Rangers of the New Republic when they come out, you'll know that it is Thrawn, most likely. So yeah, 6 Star Destroyers is a lot of firepower, but we see more to the 7th Fleet in Star Wars Rebels. At the Battle of Atollon, for example, the 7th Fleet also had 2 Interdictor class cruisers. We routinely see Architens, light cruisers escorting the ISDs, alongside Gazantes and Dreadnought class heavy cruisers, which I was very happy to see appear in Star Wars Rebels. That being said, a fleet of this size is much more than just capital ship power. Thrawn's prototype TIE Defender program was also attached to the 7th Fleet, or at least several squadrons were, and it could be possible after the sabotage of the Defender factory that the 7th Fleet actually has a decent portion of the TIE Defender and TIE Defender elites remaining in the Empire unless production was restarted somewhere else. Add that to, of course, the squadrons of starfighters and transports and supply ships that this fleet would have needed not only for combat but also logistics and maintenance. Single Star Destroyers could also power planetary invasions. For example, Imperial heavy armor like AT-ATs are typically launched from ISDs, as are Stormtrooper legions, support vehicles, the equipment to set up bases, and more. So when you have multiple Star Destroyers, there's a lot of firepower, a lot of support capacity, and a lot of everything you need to wage war available to you. And another thing to note is that the 7th Fleet is most likely more than just 6 ships. When Thrawn is blockading Lothal, for example, we saw 9 Star Destroyers. In the Thrawn books, he'll often leave ships behind and sort of divide his forces so that he's not using too much force in one place. So who knows the true amount of resources Thrawn has available to him. That being said, we do need to talk about the last time we saw the 7th Fleet because things got a little dicey for the Empire. The rebels were able to successfully bypass the blockade at Lothal and helped power the insurrection on around the planet, culminating in a herd, I guess, of Purrgil attacking the 7th Fleet and whisking Ezra and Thrawn away to places unknown. So we see multiple Star Destroyers take very serious damage from the Purrgil, most likely destroyed, but we don't know what happened to the entirety of the 7th Fleet. After the Purrgil jump away, we do get word that the space is clear of Imperial forces, but that doesn't indicate that they've all been destroyed. The 7th Fleet could have been forced to flee, they could have been pulled into hyperspace alongside the Purrgil. We don't know exactly what happened to the ships or personnel aboard. For me, the most clear thing is that we see the Chimera explicitly whisked away to hyperspace, so a portion of the 7th Fleet survives, and that's actually been confirmed in The Mandalorian. Not only because Grand Admiral Thrawn survives, or at least Ahsoka thinks he survives, but the HK droids guarding Morgan Elspeth, the magistrate we see in the Ahsoka episode, are also marked with the emblem of the 7th Fleet. Thus, they presumably came from the Chimera or another surviving ship's stores. It's very unlikely that those assets would have been moved before Thrawn's appearance. I mean, that's a decade ago at that point, and it seems to me pretty obvious that Thrawn is using Morgan Elsbeth and probably people like her to collect resources so that he can rebuild his fleet and probably stage an attack against the New Republic. This is very similar to what happened in Star Wars Legends with Thrawn campaign. After Endor, Thrawn took the Chimera, any existing forces under his command, and basically met up with other Imperial warlords to pool forces together, which he would use to launch a rebel-style attack against the New Republic. So what does this mean for The Mandalorian? Well, Thrawn most likely has an Imperial Star Destroyer remaining, but I guess that's not certain. The Chimera could have been lost, but the presence of the droids suggests to me that we will see the ship again, and I also don't think that such an iconic vessel would be killed off screen, though I've been wrong about such things before. It also means though that Thrawn should have AT-ATs, AT-STs, tanks, and other instruments under his command. He may have TIE Defenders remaining, which would be quite deadly still against anything in the galaxy, and that could also explain why Moff Gideon has an Architens. People have pointed out that Thrawn does have an Architens with hangar bays in one of the novels. Personally, I don't remember that, but I'll take their word for it. That does seem to be related to what Gideon's got going on, so who knows. But guys, that's all I have for today. What do you hope you see in Thrawn? Should the 7th Fleet return in some form? Should it take on a new name? Which assets do you think could have survived the Purrgil attack, and could Thrawn have met up with them after his reappearance? Did he put out like some sort of Thrawn signal in the sky that everyone returned to? I look forward to reading your thoughts down below. Until next time, be safe, have a good one, may the Force be with you.